Hello, welcome to Family Therapy Podcast with George Chacha. Do not go back to that marriage unless, do not go back to that marriage unless these 4+1 issues are addressed and adequately discussed. Viewer, do not misunderstand me. I believe in family unit. I uphold family unit. I believe in the sanctity of family unit. I believe in the word of God, which says that marriage or family is divine. But I also believe that these family units must be built on foundations, on principles, on respect and in peace. These are not reducible. Before I go to these points of the 4+1, I want us to discuss, or rather to just review a few case studies. And case study 1, a man in Nanyuki, a well-off man who had separated from his wife with 2 children for quite a number of years, and the family or the woman and the children had migrated to the coast. All of a sudden, after about 2-3 years, the man became so friendly, almost like a guardian angel, and extended, or rather kind of transformed. He became very warm, very friendly to the wife. He wanted to meet the wife. He wanted to do for the family what he has never been doing. And therefore, at some point, he called the wife and the children to Nanyuki. When they came, what he did is heart-rending. He killed the wife, killed the children, and buried them in secret grave. Yet in another case study, a man who had separated from his wife for 2 years, all of a sudden had a change of heart, became so friendly, became so warm towards his estranged wife, and started looking for reconciliation. The woman allowed him back. They started becoming friends. They started talking and going out. The man sabotaged her business, destroying her business completely, with the woman going down to zero. In another case study, a woman who had separated from his husband for a period of, I suppose, about 4 years. Again, the man had a change of heart. All of a sudden, he became Angel Gabriel, and he was so friendly to the wife and wanted to even kind of initiate some kind of reconciliation. And the woman believed him. She accepted him back, and what the man did cannot be explained. It had devastating effect in the life of the woman, and she had to become a beggar. Her business, which was generating in tune of about 200,000 Kenya shillings, went under, and she had to live on nothing. So these are experiences that, what do we learn from these experiences? What do we see from these experiences? In most cases, when your partner who had kicked you out, who had sent you away, all of a sudden has a change of heart, he or she has a reason. And I'm afraid that the reason may not be for good. The reason of your partner wanting you back could be to cut down the only pillar that had remained supporting you, the only pillar that had remained holding you up. And that is the reason why I'm calling to a lot of caution, when you are considering going back to that marriage. And that's precisely why I say, do not go back to that marriage unless the 4+1 issues are adequately addressed. And I will be discussing them one by one. So what are these 4+1? Dear viewer, if this is your very first time to watch Family Therapy Podcast, I request you to subscribe, click the bell, click the like. It is your comments that really give me content to talk about. It is your viewing that gives me reason to go on. I don't take you for granted. I appreciate you. I really appreciate you. And I hope that even in the course of the podcast, you will send me a text message, either hailing the show or even telling me something that can help me build this show. So what is this first point? Your partner should show interest in having a conversation. In other words, there should be somebody who will initiate the conversation. You people have to come out. Someone has to call the other. Someone has to actually kind of initiate a conversation. It could be through a phone call. It could be through an email. It could be through a WhatsApp text message. And therefore, somebody has to actually initiate that call. And somebody might ask, so who is going to initiate this call? It really doesn't matter whether it's the person who walked out or the person who remained behind. The most important thing is that somebody has initiated the call. And the second and also very important thing is, how does the other person receive this initiation or that this kind of a trigger of a conversation? How that partner responds is important. Now, if, for example, you have called your partner for a dialogue meeting, for a conversation, and your partner kind of brushes you off or maybe even answers you rudely and badly, please don't proceed with the process of going back to the marriage, because you will simply be hurt. And this time around, it might be bigger than the first one. So don't go back. Secondly, unless your partner really owns his or her mistakes, your partner should own the mistakes. Your partner should actually list, enumerate all the wrongs, all the faults that he or she might have done. By owning the mistakes, meaning that I call you and maybe we are together, we have met, and I have to begin like saying, my love, I'm utterly sorry. I have wronged you. I know I have hurt you in the most painful way. I have, I have been I have had a lot of shortcomings in me. I have many times have come home late. Many times I have failed to do this. I've done that. I have shown you a lot of disrespect. I have not involved you in this. In other words, what I'm saying is that the partner has to list down. Why does he or she have to list down? By listing down, then it means that your partner is actually aware of the things that hurt you, the things that pushed this marriage further and further apart. By listing down these points, it internalizes in your partner that these are the wrongs that I did, and therefore the person has to own them. And owning them means that actually your partner can list each by one, listing down all these points, and then and only then can you consider going back to that marriage. Otherwise, by you going back to that marriage without your partner knowing his or her weaknesses, you will only be chasing the tail, chasing the wind. Do not go back to that marriage unless your partner knows his or her mistakes and actually owns them. The third point that will determine as to whether you should go back to that marriage or not is your partner should genuinely apologize. There are different types of apology. There is one apology whereby your partner bends his or her neck. Okay, fine, I'm sorry then. If I hurt you, I'm sorry. That is not an apology. That is a mockery. You do not accept your partner to mock you, to actually perpetuate mockery, saying that, okay, if I wronged you, then forgive me. The issue here is your partner must be aware and must own up the mistakes that he or she has been performing in this marriage. And only then can he or she genuinely apologize. In the course of talking to many couples, some have said that my partner called me and said, okay, you come back and let us talk. After all, we are growing old and there is a need for us to talk. There is a need for us to sit and give good manners and good example, maybe show good example to our children. You see, people, the village is talking bad about us. People are talking bad about us. Dear viewer, if that is the reason why your partner feels that you should go back to that marriage, for heaven's sake, don't. Because those are not appropriate grounds for you to going back to that marriage. Your partner has to own up. Your partner has to apologize, genuinely coming up and saying that, my love, I'm sorry for the numerous occasions when I came late at night, expecting you to cook for me, expecting you to do for me this, for the many occasions when I showed you disrespect, for the many occasions when I emotionally attacked you, I hurt you and I bruised you. I'm sorry and I apologize. In other words, in apology, your partner should list down all the wrongs that were committed and then promise, or rather apologize, making a real apology, a sincere apology, that I promise never to do this. I promise never to go back to these things. And therefore that one becomes just something. Don't do it that the Swahili people say, like shingo upande. You are apologizing reluctantly. You are apologizing out of duress. It's not because you really want to apologize, because according to you, you are not wrong. You feel like you feel like the other person is the one who is wrong. In fact, in the course of talking to some couples, one couple told me, my partner called me and he said that I have forgiven you, so come back. In any conflict situation, it takes two people to make it happen. It takes two to tango. And therefore, if there was a conflict situation, chances are that both of you contributed to that. Only that it's the degree now of contribution that matters. But no matter what, both were involved one way or the other. And therefore, if you must go back to that marriage, if there is no appropriate apology, I strongly encourage you to treat carefully, take precaution, because going back could be another death trap for you. Do not go back into that marriage. Okay? Again, maybe using the word do not might be too strong, but if you must go back to that marriage, this point is very important for you to consider. Unless your partner makes promises you, makes some kind of maybe an oath, takes an oath, promising, I pledge never to do this. My love, I'm sorry for the pain, for the anguish that I have caused in your life. Please have room to forgive me. I pledge, I promise never to go back to those things. Meaning that this person is actually very sincere. He or she is very remorseful. And therefore, taking back this person, it could really be a sincere apology, a sincere promise, and a very honest promise. And therefore, even when you go back to that kind of marriage, at least there is hope that maybe a certain divine transformation may have taken place. I believe in miracles. People do change. If Saul changed to Paul, if many other people that we hear in the Bible changed to be what they became, anybody can change. Dear viewer, the last point, like I mentioned, +1, 4 + 1, which now makes it 5, is if you must go back to that marriage, try to listen to your inner voice. The inner voice never lies. What does your conscience tell you? What does your inner voice speak to you? If your inner voice is warning you against going back, for heaven's sake, think twice before you go back. I know it is that there will come moments when maybe your family, your brothers, your sisters, your family members are pressurizing you, they're pushing you to go back. It's because they want to uphold the cultural values. They want to uphold a title, a name. But what is at play here is not an issue of a title. It's not about cultural aspects. It is the well-being of an individual. It's the well-being of children. And therefore, it's important for us to take into consideration all this. Now, dear viewer, those are the points that I really felt are very important, because many of us are faced with that difficult choice as to whether to go back or not to go back. But if you can internalize and try to apply these 4 points +1 into your marriage before you go back, I believe that you may not come to be bruised. But again, remember, this topic could be controversial to some pastors, especially for those who believe that what God has put together, let no man put asunder. But unfortunately, again, the danger of this is that many of these people who push for what God has put together, let no man put asunder, they only take this verse out of isolation. They forget that the same Bible which says that what God has put together, let no man put asunder, is the same Bible that says that under certain circumstances, you can actually go asunder. And I will give you an example, for example, like Galatians chapter 2, 15 to 21. When Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul differed on the context, they differed in principle. They had to divorce. They had to go separate ways, not as enemies, as apostles of Jesus, but who believe differently. Otherwise, this is similar to this marriage, the union of marriage. Another good example, book of Corinthians, First Corinthians 7:15, and I will read this one. But if the unbeliever lives, let him or her live. Let him do so. Let her do so. This is the Bible. Corinthians 7:15. A believing man or woman is not bound in such circumstances. God has called us to live in peace. Well, I know that this might sound very contradicting, but again, even as we watch, as we tread along this topic of whether to go back or not, let our conscience guide us. Let us not entirely rely on what our spiritual directors tell us, on what our parents tell us, on what our friends tell us. I believe that the closest we can come is our children. What do our children say? How do they see it? These are the most critical and significant members of this conflict. Dear viewer, as I come close to winding up this episode, I just want to remind you that the 4+1 are very strong litmus test papers for a marriage into which you should go back or not. Otherwise, don't go back to die. Don't go back to be in a worse painful situation than you were before. And you will come to that point where you have to use your own common sense, your own judgment, your own instincts. What are they telling you? But what I would really advise strongly for you to consider, if you will come to that point where you have to leave that marriage, part as friends. Don't bang the door against the face of your partner. You might need to come back. Don't burn the bridge after you have crossed. You might need that bridge back again. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Again, remember, I don't take your viewing for granted. You are important. I cherish you. I request you to subscribe to this channel. Click the like. Click the bell. If you know someone who is going through a difficult moment as to whether to go back to the marriage or not, share with him, with her, this episode. Because in the end, it is about making the right decision. Maybe I should have begun like, how do we prevent marriages from breaking up? In my next episode, I will be talking about conflict resolution in marriage. What are those things that we must do to prevent marriage from breaking? I think it's important for us, rather than waiting until the marriage is broken, then we start trying to see how to fix it. Let us prevent our marriages from breaking. Otherwise, thank you. Till next time. Bye-bye.